but there are a lot of teams today who don't have a solid go-to-market plan on paper.
Stephanie, here's your chance to introduction.
My name is 𝗪𝗏. I am the principal and founder of a boutique agency.
What do you think has changed the most about GTM in the last 5 years?
A company's ability to harness that tech in a use case, very calculated way can be the make or break for them in the next 5 years.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another series of SaaSstories with Arun Pillai podcast featuring Stephanie, a good friend of mine from the Bay Area. We met in an event a few months ago and we had that instant connect. And probably because of the common problems and the way we think about GTM, I'll let Steph talk more about that in this podcast. But before we go further, Stephanie, here's your chance to introduction. So tell us about who you are, where you come from, and your affinity to GTM and marketing.
Thank you so much, Arun, for having me. You're right. The minute I met you, with instant connection around all of the problems we're trying to solve in the market together, and just excited to be here and with for this conversation today. My name is 𝗪𝗏. I am the principal and founder of a boutique agency specializing in demand generation, but we're going to talk more about how brand and demand intersect and how critical that is. But that's really my wheelhouse, and I'm a builder. I've been working with B2B SaaS companies my entire career, and it's just exciting to see the rapid pace of innovation when it comes to AI and the new capabilities we have and tools in our toolbox to address things differently. But also, I really love helping teams scale in a way that can help them minimize friction. And I know we're going to talk a little bit about that today, but just excited to be here and continue to be excited to be a marketing leader in a time that is unprecedented.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us. And I know you've been part of a lot of growth journeys. You played significant roles in the GTM motion for a lot of brands out there. You've seen up curves, down curves. So specific to GTM, most GTM plans look great on paper, but they fall apart in execution. In your experience, where do you think the teams actually get GTM wrong?
Well, I don't mean to be facetious, but I know you won't be shocked, but there are a lot of teams today who don't have a solid go-to-market plan on paper. Step one, thank you for saying that. Step two is, does it address product, sales, and marketing, and that thought process and metrics and measurability across all of those teams? And then what that actually looks like from a business outcomes perspective in each of those respective areas, and that sort of cascade of those goals and shared goals. I think those are critical things that I'm seeing are not on paper, because what happens is go-to-market teams then retreat sort of immediately to what I would call their own vanity metrics, and it just doesn't allow for that collaboration. And I think those are sort of the pieces that need to critically come together. And that's just where I see tons of silos in organizations and where it breaks down.
So you're saying, let alone having a plan and failing in execution, most teams today fail to even have a plan because of the silos within these organizations. Yeah, that's a great point. And I agree with you. And that's something that I see as well as I talk to more and more companies want to do great things, but they fail the basics and they don't even have a plan to start with.
And I'll just add to that, Arun, and say that the best leadership that I've had the privilege to work for took a very calculated approach to go to market. And, those are generally seasoned leaders. I can highlight a few folks, Workday, Integrate, who I think did it well, which was Salesforce is another example, where it was very clear what are the key markets, what are the key verticals that we're going to go after, and then let's build the product sales and marketing motions around the collective go-to-market. That is what I would call sustainable scalability, et cetera, from a growth, a business growth perspective. And I'll pick on our friends in marketing for a moment here, just because I've been there, where your marketing plans can be disconnected from business outcomes. And I'm using marketing as an example because I do see it often. And then my goal is really to connect those three functions back to business outcomes, right? And that's where I believe those companies that have scaled, the Salesforces, the Workdays of the world, just continue to see that kind of growth.
Oh, yeah, I agree with you. And what do you think has changed the most about GTM in the last 5 years? Is it the buyer? Is it the tech? Or is it the channel?
I'm torn on that one between tech and buyer. And I know we're going to talk a lot about the buyer's journey, which is my philosophical approach to any and all marketing and go-to-market. But I would actually say the tech, I think, I know I'm preaching to the choir here, Arun, but please back me up on this one. AI is unprecedented from the rapid growth and innovation that it can provide, the insight it can provide to go to market. And those companies who are harnessing that tech in the right way are going to see success. And I we can talk more about this later, but I think a company's ability to harness that tech in a use case, very calculated way can be the make or break for them in the next 5 years. Right. And that is moving so quickly that requires its own strategy. And I'm sure, again, I'm preaching to the choir there. From a buyer perspective, I think you have a few pieces that are evolving quickly as well. Buyers are almost, especially in this economic and geopolitical environment, almost even more risk averse, and are really almost going inward a bit is the way I would describe it, which is, how do I go back to my network? How do I leverage my peers more and more as a trust factor when I feel, it's risky in this kind of environment to make big bets? And how do I do a lot of that research or send my buying committee out to do that respective research for me so that I have that trust with that brand? And then again, back to your peers, is this a known brand that I can bet on? Are they investing in this area? And I think, there's the whole discussion around the more progressive, forward-thinking, innovative buyers, and then there's the laggards. And that's something to consider. But I think we have to think more and more about the moments in time and the buyer's journey and how we capitalize on those moments. So it's arguable the tech and the buyer, but both evolving rapidly.
Yeah. No, I think I agree with you. It has to be tech to start with. And the way I think about it, because tech is evolving rapidly, it has resulted in how buyers think about the buying itself, right? And hence, if not the channels, I think it's impacted the way marketers should think about the channels. But yeah, you said it right. You totally said it right with AI amplifying everything at scale and speed and tech. That's the ripple effect from there on as to how it impacts the buyers and the channel. So you've seen it all at different scales in GTM. You've been part of companies of all sizes. You've been part of some of massive growth companies, as we know. What, according to you, is working in GTM now, and what separates the best from the rest?
I talked a little bit, so I just want to repeat it because I think it's important a little bit from a GTM at scale perspective that leadership owns the key messaging around these are the bets we're going to make and these are the business outcomes we expect. So I'll take the marketing vantage point, obviously, because that's my expertise, but I think it comes back around to the business for certain. But I have been a student of Forrester, Serious Decisions, and Insight Partners. I've had fantastic mentors that utilize those models and benchmarks to build. So my advice to marketers is kind of twofold, which is utilize those models and benchmarks to evaluate where are you at from a growth company in your growth, where are you at in the fruition of growth in your company, meaning like SMB, mid-market, pre-IPO, large public company, and look at those benchmarks and say, okay, what is our budget? What is our spend? What do our resources need to look like? It's not to say that that benchmark is always, exactly the same for a company, depending on the business model, but it is to say, then you have a benchmark to stand on, and your ROI, you can continue to look at that as you grow, right? And that's kind of the way you grow budgets, the way you grow markets, et cetera, that we talked about earlier. And then I think the second thing I would say is just ensuring that your marketing campaigns, your brand campaigns, et cetera, are never disconnected from business outcomes. Be very clear on how your marketing measurement is directly aligned to those business outcomes. And that goes back to like the intersection of product, sales, and marketing, which are truly the go-to-market team that we're talking about. And I think more often than not, like we've talked about, those can become siloed very quickly without clear leadership and clear shared goals.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And on behalf of all the startups out there, if you were to, specifically, and given that, most startups are trying to deal with limited budgets, and whether or not they're trying to raise funds or build it bootstrap, there's never a case that startups are dealing with abundance of resources, right? So keeping that in mind, if you had to design a GTM strategy for a startup with little budget, what would be the first 3 actions you would take?
Well, my brain, I'm hardwired after a student of many of those models that I mentioned to think team, tools, and tech. But I'll take, again, maybe a bit deeper dive to align the go-to-market teams like we talked about earlier. I would say first, defining GTM, aligning on that on paper is critical. And then I would say second, how do you as a marketing team think about how you align brand and demand? My model is generally this brand and campaign hierarchy and strategy, and how those will measurably drive outcomes for the business. And then be a forcing function, no matter where you sit in the organization, for a collective sort of revenue committee or tiger team that is going to tie together product innovation to your sales and marketing efforts. It's where product-led companies, it's where product-led growth derived from, which is how do they solve a pain point and problem? How do we solve a pain point and problem for our target audience when you're defining that go-to-market? And I think too often those pieces are disconnected. And I've seen it just work really well where there's that cadence of what a collective shared goal looks like for a revenue committee, as an example. That can be pods, that can be sales, territories, but verticals, right? But make sure you've got that team of experts rallied around that collectively. Otherwise, it's just silos all day and friction points, which nobody wants, and is still, and so many teams are trying to work through. Back to your point about startups and folks in build mode, which most people are. The folks that are going to win are in build mode right now, especially in this environment.
Yeah, you spoke about. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, or need to be in build mode. Lots of folks in the market are saying the funnel is dead. Demand is where strategy meets execution.
These are the two sides of the same coin, per se, right?